excited for this week's episode. We had a great conversation with Jib Hunt, who's the CEO of Kemper Snowboards.
So cool.
Yeah, it was fun. He's been in snowboarding since 1987, since he was 12. Started snowboarding midway through a ski season. He was riding on the ski team and
kind of first gen.
Yeah.
In Vermont, or where was it again? East Coast somewhere.
Yeah. He said hasn't been back on a ski since. So he just jumped in with both feet and has been in the industry since the beginning, and had a really fun story about bringing Kemper back because he didn't start Kemper in the 80s, but he bought the rights to it and has brought it back went away in the early 2000s. So it's a really fascinating story.
Yeah, it was really cool. He had some great advice for entrepreneurs, one of which was make sure you build a side company or a side hustle before you fully jump into it on a full-time basis, simply so you can test it and make sure it works and get good product market fit and that sort of thing. So a lot of good advice, a lot of good story here this week's episode. So let's dive in.
Yeah, let's go. I'm excited to be here.
Me too.
Another week of the Midnight Founders podcast. We're here with Jib Hunt, who is the CEO of Kemper Snowboards.
Right.
So Kemper was a brand it was my first snowboard when I first started snowboarding in the 90s.
Way back when.
Way back. Yeah. And so when I met you, I was super fascinated to hear that you were bringing it back because I knew they had disappeared for a long time. So
yeah.
I've known Jib for a little while, but for the listeners, would love to hear your background. I know you rode professionally for a few years, but would love to hear how you got into snowboarding and kind of why you chose this passion.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I grew up in northern New Hampshire in a ski town called North Conway, and we had 5 or 6 ski resorts there. So at the age of 3, I was skiing 5 minutes from my local resort, and it was 1987, so dating myself, I was 12, when I first tried a snowboard, and I had been skateboarding years prior to that and loved it. Kind of tired of skiing. So yeah, 1987 is when I started snowboarding, and it was super new back then.
That was when Burton was just barely coming out, and some of those other brands, right?
10 years old was okay. Burton. Burton started in 1977, and that was the Burton rep was at our local mountain, Cranmore Mountain, and they had a demo for anyone to try, and all my friends and I, we grabbed a board and ready to make the switch. And my first run, I hated it. I was cursing the whole way down, and then second run, I got one of my turns down, and eventually by the end of the day, it was turning both ways, and the rest was history.
Did you just switch that day, like it was skiing and no more?
Yeah, I think that year, I was still technically on the junior high race team. So I had to finish that out. But on the weekends, I was full on snowboarding. And then, so it was kind of 50-50 the first year. And then my second year, which actually I bought a Kemper. Kemper was my second board in 1988.
Cool.
I was full on, I was all in snowboarding the second year.
So you were on the ski team. So that means that your skills are not confined to snowboarding. You're also good at skiing as well.
I'd say I was good at skiing. I haven't skied since the 87 winter was the last winter. Never been on a pair of skis since.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So I went all in and was committed to snowboarding since.
Interesting that a lot of that movement started in that area of the country, right? Why do you think that is?
Well, back then there was actually, it was like, it was almost like a rap battle. It was East Coast, West Coast. It was New England, especially with Burton being there, was a huge surgence of snowboarding. And on the West Coast, it was Kemper and Sims were the two bigger brands. So getting right into Kemper, Kemper started in also 1987, the same year I started snowboarding. And they were It was originally started by David Kemper, and he's from Ontario, Canada. He was building boards in his garage. He was still in high school, and he was purchased and went along with the purchase by a brand in California. And during that time, it was Kemper, Burton, and Sims were like the top three brands. There were some other brands like Winter Stick from here in Utah, and also Barfoot. Those are kind of like the five really big brands, but the top three were Burton, Sims, and Kemper, and they were battling it out. And
not just with boards, but they were starting a whole movement, right? I mean, they were kind of building the sport into what it is today.
Yeah, it was definitely pioneering days. Yeah. Even myself and all my friends and everyone snowboarding during that era was really like pioneering the sport. You know, we were kind of the younger end of it. There were definitely, you know, some guys older than us, especially like, you know, Burton kicking it off in '77, who had 10 more years ahead of us. But that was back when they were figuring out, you know, there was like slide your feet in for the bindings and still the rope, like the old Snurfer. And then eventually, you know, the bindings with the straps came along. So the boards are definitely heavy and cumbersome still when I
first
started.
Gen, right?
Yeah, they're more like second, third gen.
Third gen, okay.
But it was light years ahead of, you know, the early days in the '70s, early '80s.
Yeah, my first board was still had the tail, like the fin on it.
Yeah, you probably had a Burton, Woody.
No, it was a Kemper, I think.
Oh, okay.
It was the one that, it was a Kemper, and it had that it was one direction. You couldn't switch.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how far it's come. So you were a pro rider from 93 to 98. What kind of what was your focus in snowboarding?
Yeah. So, again, started in '87, and quickly my whole group and most of, you know, New England, like the guys and girls who really like got into the sport, a lot of us, it was early days, were getting sponsored as amateurs, which I think it was my third year. I had a sponsor, you know, board sponsor with Mistral, and then we're doing all the competitions. And then by the time I was 17, I was a paid sponsored pro rider. So I did that for 5 years. Also, during then, I went to school for design, which is how I parlayed my career into becoming the design director at Burton for all the apparel. So, yeah, I was riding for 5 years, traveling everywhere, getting paid, having lots of fun, doing contests, photo shoots.
I don't know, Jake. Sounds like the dream life to me.
Man.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I was out here in Utah a lot where the snow was good. And then, when college was finishing up, it was either keep, you know, pushing the pro career or get a job. And I had the opportunity to, you know, actually go right to Burton. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. And I was there for another 5 years.
That's incredible. Yeah, 98, I was a teenager watching the Warren Miller films every year, like watching the movies about what you were doing, thinking like that would be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, movies back then, it's they don't really have them. It's a little bit different nowadays, but back then when they'd have the premieres and
for sure.
VHS tapes. So like for snowboarding, I mean skiing, even when I was still skiing, we'd watch those every year and study them, and like those are like our heroes. And like, especially being in New England, seeing all the, you know, the West Coast skiing where it's like big mountains, deeper powder, no ice.
Yeah. Are the mountains in New England as steep as they are out here?
There's certain elements, but no, they're smaller.
Yeah.
There's still some bigger mountains like Killington and Sunday River that have the higher altitude, and they have some pretty steep runs, and even like some of the like World Cups, you know, they have GS courses. So there's some pretty technical stuff there, but no, nothing compares to out west.
The snow's a little slushier from what I understand. Is that
It's
right?
heavier,
icier, yeah.
Moisture there. Yeah. So it's brutally cold, bone chilling cold. It goes right through you. The snow heavier because of that moisture. So out here, it's, when it says it's 0 degrees, it actually feels like 30 degrees. It coming from back east, it's not that cold. And then the snow is just so much lighter out here.
So do we have the greatest snow on earth?
Utah definitely does.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
For that reason, this podcast was worth it, so that we could establish that fact, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
From somebody that snowboarded all across the world. That's great.
Yeah.
My cousins, a lot of them grew up back east, and they would come out here to ski, and they're like, yeah, when we were skiing in the mountains, we mean hills over in where we're at. They look at the Rockies, and they're like, yeah, this is nothing. I mean, this is so much more than what we had growing up. So just interesting, the comparison, right?
It was, I see it also though as an advantage. A lot of people migrated west, especially like, pro skiers, even snowboarders, because if you learned on the east, you're hitting jumps and riding pipes it was like riding concrete, and you're beating yourself up every time you would fall, and you'd have to master riding on these solid jumps.
Good point. I didn't think of that.
And then you come out here, and it's just like you could turn it up a notch because it was, you're landing in powder and the snow, even, all the times I've been out here and even living out here now, when people are like, it's icy, I've to this day still not seen like blue, like glaring ice where you can see your reflection out here. And that's like what it's like back east. So
I don't think I'd like snowboarding if that was the case.
Same. Yeah, that doesn't sound very appealing to me.
So fast forward, I know you've been in the kind of apparel side, design side for the middle part of your career. What brought about the switch to doing this, your own thing with Kemper?
Yeah, so 2003, I was in Vermont. I had been working at Burton for 5 years, and I got recruited to be on the brand team for the launch of Virgin Mobile in the U.S., so Virgin Mobile USA. So I packed my bags and moved down to New York City. I did that for about a year and did not like it, and got back into apparel and worked with a number of streetwear brands and even action sport brands for a bunch of years. And then that's kind of when I was seeing there was the growth and the resurgence of digital marketing and technology being involved in all that. So I actually switched gears, and through apparel, I was kind of moving through being hands-on creative and more into marketing, or both. So I made the complete switch and got into actually the ad tech world and was running global marketing for big programmatic advertising companies, Seismic and Media Math, for a bunch of years. So that's where I learned a lot about online advertising and how it works, and working with big brands and how they were doing it. So while I was doing that, I was still obviously snowboarding for fun, and I saw this trend that people that were 35 and older were collecting all the old boards that they had as kids and going to yard sales and trading. So this nostalgia was happening within snowboarding. And at the same time, in my opinion, snowboarding seemed like it was getting a little bit bland. And even like from a graphic point of view, it was all kind of blending together, a lot of dark colors. And so with both things going on, I'm like, I want to get back into it somehow. And I saw there was a couple brands that were, even Burton was bringing back select like old graphics from the 90s, and a couple brands came back. So I started researching, and I was able to get the trademark for Kemper, because they'd been out of business since 1995. And
what happened to them? Just for those that aren't familiar with that story.
When Kemper sold it to the company in California, that went for 4 or 5 years, and that was like the heyday of Kemper. And then that company sold it to another company that took on a bunch of other snowboard brands. And from the people I've spoken to, they just started using less quality materials and shipping Costco. And at that time, there was around 600 snowboard brands, so the market had been so saturated. And it was almost like 2008 in the financial industry. It just kind of blew up. And, nowadays there's like 50 snowboard brands. So they went out of business. So they
didn't stay true to their core, and they, skimped on quality, and
exactly
people saw it and they're like, forget it.
It wasn't the same. It just all went downhill, and that was kind of the end of it.
So have you had an uphill battle trying to revitalize that brand when you took it back over later on, or have you had to deal with any of those issues?
Not really, because the last owner and all those years of graphics were so bad and so horrible. I brought back the first wave, and that's what people remembered, where they had a great products. I think they had, in my opinion, the better team, even than the Burton Pro team at that time. And then Burton took that over. But so yeah, Kemper was like, neck and neck with Burton back then on
Smart.
top.
I don't think we've had anyone on the podcast yet that's taken a brand that was amazing, crashed and burned, and then has now revitalized it. So that's kind of a cool thing. I love that story.
Yeah, it's fun.
Has the entrepreneurship, so you worked on the corporate side, right, for a portion of your career. Has this shift to entrepreneurship been what you expected it to be, or has it been different? Has it been harder, easier? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's definitely there's challenges for sure. I mean, it's at the root of it, it's fun because like there's, snowboarding's been my lifestyle, my favorite sport, all I think about, even when it's 100 degrees out, I wish I was snowboarding. So
maybe then it's wakeboarding for a minute, right?
No, I've never wakeboarded.
Really? Wow,
Not once.
interesting. So you're holding true to snowboarding,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Never even tried it?
Never even tried
Good
it.
for you. Wow, cool.
Yep.
I'm going to get you on a wakeboard.
Yeah.
I haven't even wake surfed yet.
Will you go if I take you? Will you
Sure.
go? Yeah.
You would be amazing at it, I'm sure.
I'm
'cause
sure
it's
I'm
you
sure
very
I'd pick it up
similar.
pretty quick.
Very similar.
Yeah.
I actually ride switch. So,
Oh, you do?
yeah,
Nice.
I wakeboard goofy and ride snowboard regular.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Huh.
It just feels more comfortable that way.
I think you would love it. You need to get out on the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen.
Awesome. But I'm bringing back a brand. It helps that the older crowd remembered it. So that was for sure. There's people buying it who had Kemper as a kid and loved the brand, and it was associated with, the good days of snowboarding when it was all fresh and new, and you're getting in trouble for building jumps and all that. And then actually the younger crowd now, like the whole 80s, 90s trend is hitting home with the younger crowd, Stranger Things going on, and a lot of brands bringing back all their older graphics and products. So that's definitely helped. And then, so that's helped, penetrate the market. But at the end of the day, my competitors are all these snowboard brands that have, been in the market for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So, you're trying to take away, wall space from them at the stores. But I think because we're small and nimble and applying everything I've ever done, especially the digital marketing and just doing things differently, the ski and snowboard industry is so old school and archaic if you're and slow to change. So I think that's been a big advantage for me, is looking at it differently, of how we do it and how we market and if we need to make a change, we have a small team, so we can do it, where these other companies, there's hundreds, or Burton, I think, has over 1,000 employees. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through when they want to do something different.
For sure, making changes in an organization that size, I'm sure, is just excruciating.
Yeah. And I would think too, and I don't know if this is true, you can vouch for this or not, but it seems like because of your brand cachet from before, it's an automatic in a lot of times, because they remember Kemper and they're like, oh yeah, Kemper, let's look at that again. Is that true or not?
It's an attention, it will get someone's attention if they remember it, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, I've always said this, is it all comes down to, the quality of the product. So, take the graphics off the board. It has to be, a great board, rides well, great materials, unique shapes. So the riders have to like the board. And then the icing on the cake is, it's neon graphics with a retro, aesthetic for the look and feel of the board.
Cool.
So that's kind of the end of the day, though, the root of it has to be really good product. So I've had that background, and I know how things need to be made. I know, what I expect from riding so long, and the ski and snowboard industry in general is a very picky and tight-knit group, and they will spit you up and chew you out if, you try to pull a fast one on you.
So Jib, when did you take over Kemper then? I think I interrupted you earlier when you started talking about when you took over Kemper. What year was that roughly?
2018.
Oh, so not too long ago, really?
Yeah, it's been 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I was still working full time. I was, doing it on the side. I actually, the first year I was still living in New Jersey. I joke, the snowboarding mecca of the world. So
the Jersey Shore.
I kicked it off in New Jersey, dirty Jersey, and got it going. And then my family and I, we wanted to get out of there regardless, and we didn't want to go back to New England. We're like, let's go west and do something new. So I'd been out here many times through the years. So we've been out here in Utah 3 years now.
Was that a scary switch going from the corporate world to a new startup and less stability and all that stuff, or what?
Yeah,
what was that like?
A little bit. I mean, it's I've done it before for different things, but we did the move and a new company. So but I'm kind of one of those people. It's like I'll find a way to figure it out, and just I felt really good about what we're doing. Yeah, it's there's a little bit of being scared and something new, but it's it's part of being an entrepreneur in general is you got to deal with a lot of stuff, and new things come up all the time, and you just got to have that personality and mentality of like how to figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, hopefully you know someone that can help you figure it out, and within your network. So it's about, not getting focused on, it's being more focused on how you're going to solve the problem versus focusing on the problem.
I love that. So here we are in the Midnight Founders podcast. You're in the trenches right now of entrepreneurship, right? What has made you, Jib, a midnight entrepreneur where you're cranking away late at night, making things happen? I mean, what experience comes to mind when you hear about that?
There is always something to do. So it's, my aspiration is to grow the company to where I have people doing specialized tasks and roles better than I do, so that I don't have to focus on it. Because now it's, I find myself, working during the day, coming home, trying to turn off work, hang out with the family. Family goes to bed, and then, there's still a long laundry list of things to do. So, that to me is like, I don't always want to be doing that. Like I said, my goal is to hopefully grow this brand where I can bring people on to like offload certain things and bring on people that do it better than I do it. I think that's how the brand's going to get better and better, is not having me do a bulk of it.
How big is your team now, Jib?
I have one full-time employee, and then we do have, with our industry, we have independent sales reps. So we have about 8 of them that cover North America and Canada. So they're not full-time employees, but I'm working with them closely.
Are you doing anything with riders yet?
Yeah, we have, I think we have about 15 riders. Mix of men and women at the U.S. and Canada. Yep. Yep. And then we have like some local kids we hook up as well. And we have kids boards coming out this fall, so in a month. So yeah, we're going to want to get some younger riders on the program as well.
I've noticed, Jib, that your focus is made in the USA and keeping things local. Is that right? As much as possible.
Well, right now, all the boards are made overseas and the bindings, but as we speak, actually this week we got the unit next door to us, and we are getting equipment and setting up to make at least one model here in Utah for the next year. So yeah, USA made is going to be a part of what we offer, and we want to get that right with one board with a couple sizes, and then the goal would be to scale it and see where it goes. But I think with all the stuff going on in the world right now, just having all your eggs in that overseas basket, and it's materials and getting your stuff out of the port. It's not even necessarily getting it from China, that's where our factory is, to California. That's about a week to 2 week boat ride. We had our stuff sit in LA in a container for 5 weeks, like our boards. And that's the hard part, where you're like, I'm just going to drive. If I had a 18-wheeler, can I just drive down there and get it?
So frustrating.
So frustrating. So there's an element of, making it here in the U.S., creating jobs. There's definitely a market for people who want USA-made boards, but also just the control element of, as long as you have the materials and the people to make it, the cost is about the same when you factor in labor versus customs and duties and taxes, but time, the months that people are waiting to have their product actually show up in a warehouse, that can cost you a lot of money too. So, and it's also, we want to do, have the ability to do some smaller run custom, if we want to do a collaboration with someone or another brand, we'll have the ability to do it here. And just my whole goal is to become the biggest, most well-known brand in Utah. So having some of the boards being made here, I think, the riders here in the state will get behind it. And then even just American riders in general will, there's definitely a group of them who are all about buying USA-made boards.
Yeah, I like that it's made in Utah. We have the greatest snow on earth. We might as well have the greatest snowboards.
That's right.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So snowboarding season's coming up. I know it doesn't feel like it outside right now, but you guys stocked and ready to go this year?
Yeah, we my game plan, kind of going back to my earlier comment about being agile and being able to move quickly in different directions opposed to the bigger brands, is our quantities are decent, but they're nowhere near what Burton's doing, or some of the brands that have been around for many, many years. So my strategy has been to be the first in the factory and first out of the factory. So our boards actually landed in our warehouse in Salt Lake last week, which is the middle of August, and we'll start shipping next week to any of the shops who want it. And customers have already pre-ordered online because we told them we'd be shipping in August. But there's going to be plenty of brands that will be delivering late, or I've already heard of other brands that are cutting their production, like they won't be delivering 10, 20, 30% of what they're supposed to be making, and they're just cutting orders with shops. So for us, I see that as an opportunity, and that was kind of the game plan. Like, we'll have stock, and it's just all about letting all these shops know we have it. And there's a point where a shop's not gonna want to have their walls empty anymore, because if they don't have product to sell, they don't make money.
For sure.
Very strategic. I like that you're watching the market that closely and realizing, hey, there's a gap. I'm going to fill it.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah. It's the last couple of years, things have changed, the way you've had to do business and run your business. And I'm sure it's changed for everyone. It's just a matter of, it's kind of like anything these days. If you really want something and you see it in the store, you better buy it, because if you blink, it's not going to be there. It's just hard to get things made, first of all, and then just getting it here so you actually can deliver it to a store. So
It's so true. I'm not going to let my wife listen to that part. I don't want any more encouragement to just buy when she sees stuff.
yeah.
That's great.
Kelsey, if you're listening, I might be buying a new snowboard.
Right. Jib, let's think a little crazy for a second, right? What's the wildest story you can think of that you've experienced while on this journey with Kemper? Some crazy thing that people are like, no way, that did not happen.
Yeah, it's kind of a sad one. It actually happened today. Getting in my truck, driving here today to this podcast, my good friend I've known from a long time in the industry back in New York called me to let me know that my New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey sales rep passed away 2 days ago.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to hear that.
That actually is probably the craziest thing that's like happened to me, having someone like that works for me pass away. And he was like really good guy, been in the industry, working in the industry longer than I have. And he brought a lot to the table to Kemper. So it's kind of a sad day for industry and his family, and just for us, because we had a lot of good things going on with him. So, yeah.
What was his name?
His name is Peter Seminara.
Peter Seminara. Shout out to you and all the awesome things you did for Kemper. That's too bad.
So,
sorry to hear that.
That's kind of a first.
Are you close to his family and everything?
I didn't really know I never met his wife and his kids. So we worked together at Burton, actually. He was the sales rep for Burton at that time. And it was always, seeing him at Burton work events. And then we have a big network of people both of us know through the industry. And then when he knew what I was doing with Kemper, he reached out, and he had still been repping for other brands. So he'd taken it on last year and lit up the whole territory, tons of great shops. And he actually came on not just repping, but he's also our sales manager. So he was overseeing all the reps. So it was crazy, just driving down here, getting that phone call. I thought this other friend of ours was just calling out of the blue, and I just talked to him the other day.
So it was a sudden thing, obviously.
Yeah, sudden.
Well,
I don't know all the details yet. I mean, it was literally. I had one of my other reps when I was walking in. He called me. I was gonna call him after this, but he beat me to it. But yeah, that's probably I have a lot of fun, crazy stuff, but that's a kind of a first. It's still kind of sinking in for me, Kemper, direct hit personally and on a business point of view.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast, even though you're going through that challenging time yourself personally. I'm sure that's a personal blow and hurts a lot. So, well, you've talked about what's next for Kemper. Sounds like the future is bright and there's some cool things happening, right? What is your vision? Do you hope to, take 40% of the market share, or, put Burton in their place, I should say? What's the plan? What do you hope to do?
Yeah, I think market share wise, I don't have a specific number. It's going to be a slow climb up that ladder. There's a lot of brands that have been around who are way bigger and have a lot of market share already. So it's just kind of chipping away at that and hopefully capitalizing on their mistakes and, working our way in. Introducing more products, so we have snowboards, we have bindings, we have split boards, we have split board skins. We are working on a boot. We're working on a split board binding. Those will come out in the 24-25 winter season. We have a lot of awesome collabs coming out this year and next. We're going to, this year we have Kemper goggles coming out, which is a partnership with Wildhorn, which is actually another Utah company. And then next winter, the 23-24 winter, we're going to have helmets, goggles, and sunglasses with them. We also have a partnership with O'Neill where we're going to be coming out with outerwear and boards. Another one with Ogeo, which was a Utah company, is now owned by Callaway in California. We're going to have a full snowboard line with them. So like roller, duffel bag, roller, snowboard bag, backpack.
Cool.
Sign me up. Yeah, we have our boards in Riders Republic, the video game. So, there's Kemper boards in video games now. And we have some other, Maui and Sons, we're going to do a project with them for 23, 24. And then we have a couple other really, really big ones that I can't talk about yet. But one is going to be with another company, a big company here in Utah, which I'm excited about. And the other one is going to be with a company that's internationally very, very big. So my whole thing is partnering with other brands and doing other products that either we don't do already and they do better than us, or a brand that is just, it aligns with Kemper, and we can put together some fun graphics and so forth. Like, for example, this winter we have a Motley Crue board, so we have that'll be in stores and we'll be shipping next week. So that's a fun one.
There's some retro going on right there, isn't there?
Yeah, and they've been on tour all summer. They're on tour right now.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is there are a lot of cool things on the horizon for Kemper.
Yeah, the whole thing is, like, in my opinion, again, it's the snowboarding is always fun. It's not the act of snowboarding, but like the industry, and it's more well known now. But it seems like it's just a little stale, watered down, and I'm trying with Kemper to bring back that fun and the colors and the excitement and just having fun with the sport and having fun in general in life, and just kind of injecting that back into the sport itself.
Back to its roots. I like it. That's so fun.
I agree.
Thanks for being on with us. How do people find Kemper? How do they find you?
Yeah, Kemper is Kemper-snowboards.com, or type in Kemper Snowboards in Google. You should find us pretty easily. Our Instagram is our number one social media channel, which is just Kemper Snowboards. And yeah, I'm behind all those, the website, the emails, the social media. You're
the man making it happen.
Still me.
That's great.
Answering a lot of that stuff. So that's another benefit nowadays for the consumer side is, you're dealing with the owner most of the time.
That's so cool. One last question, Jim, before we let you go. If you were to give one piece of advice to other entrepreneurs in a similar, they're in a similar journey, they're in their companies, similar size or not, what would you tell them? What would you help them out with?
Yeah, I'd say it definitely helps to be, an expert or very passionate and knowledgeable about what industry you're going to be going in or the product you're going to be making, because you can't fake that. You can't make that up. It's coming across as authentic because you're authentic is a huge thing. That's one. And I'd say also the side hustle route. Like, I didn't have the opportunity to just jump right in this, and it was a slow build while I was still working full time and nights and weekends, getting it to a point where I could tip the scale and go all in. I'd say that's where it's a little bit safer, and you can test the waters and have a little more stability to know that it's and feel that it's going to work or has a good opportunity to work, opposed to just jumping in and then finding out, you know, it's not working, and then, you know, you don't really have any options. So I would say, you know, side hustle it for as long as you can, and if it's going great, then go for it.
Side hustle it. Love that. Thanks again, Jim.
I think that's
Thank
the first
you.
time we've heard that one.
I think so too, and I love that. Side hustle it. I'm going to quote you on that one. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
The Midnight Founders Podcast is a podcast about entrepreneurship that is hosted by CB Vault and Rev Road. CB Vault is the entrepreneur arm of Central Bank.
And Rev Road is a venture services firm where companies come to grow.
Thanks for listening to us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
This is AJ and Jake signing out.